And good night, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to my daily Instagram live / YouTube, depending on which platform you're watching this on. We are studying the book of Deuteronomy, and we're currently on chapter 26. So let's do a quick recap of chapter 25, although I would like to forget it for the sake of the review. Let's recap. So chapter 25 was about the family of the unsandaled, which was very odd, and we had a lot of interesting discussion about why this was what it was. So it was talking about how basically chapter 25 was just certain rules and laws for the people in those times, for the people of Israel. Although these rules and laws were very unorthodox in our understanding of our world today, this is what is in the book of Deuteronomy, so we are to read it. So basically, if you have any disputes, to take it up with the court, the Levitical priests, if it cannot be handled at a lower level, these are priests appointed by God, and the ones that the people are to appoint are to be taking their job really responsibly, to be fair, because they are representations of what God wants. And then if somebody is found guilty, it is very much so an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So if they are to be flogged, you are to flog them, but with the limitation of 40 lashes. So it's like you can punish them, but don't over punish them. It needs to be fair. Then it talked about the brother situation. So it said, if your brother is to die, you are to take his wife and give her a son or a daughter. And that was strange, but the reason why is because the bloodline of the Israelites was so sacred back in those days. These were the chosen people. So it was very important for any Israelites to be able to carry on their family name. So at that time, that meant everything to those people. To the point that that brother that did pass away probably would have wanted that to happen so that his wife has or continues to have a line of responsibility in that land. So then what else is kind of important? And then it said also to remember what the Amalekites did, not to forgive them. They are not to reap any benefits of your land in any way, shape, or form, because remember what they did to you in Egypt. So then, moving forward to chapter 26. Chapter 26, we're going a little bit more rules, but these are more normal. So this is talking about like the first fruits and the tithes. So this is a proclamation that was given to the Israelites from God of how to handle their blessings. And it says, basically, when you have entered the land the Lord your God has given you as an inheritance and have taken possession of it and settled in it, take some of the first fruits of all that you produce from the soil of the land the Lord your God has given you and put them in a basket. Then go to the place the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name, and say to the priest in office at the time, I declare today that the Lord your God, and that I have come to the land the Lord swore to our ancestors to give us. The priest shall take the basket from your hands and set it down in front of the altar of the Lord your God. Then you shall declare before the Lord your God, my father, and then this is like basically the declaration is the history of why they're here, what they're here for. So basically, my father, because remember, these are the children of the Israelites originally. The Israelites never made it to the land, if you remember from earlier in the chapters. So The Israelites never made it. These are their children. Their children were allowed because the children were not of age to be responsible for the wickedness that their parents were in charge of. So it says, my father was a wandering Aramean, and he went down into Egypt with a few people and lived there and became a great nation, powerful and numerous. Verse 6, but the Egyptians mistreated us and made us suffer, subjecting us to harsh labor. Then we cried out to the Lord, the God of our ancestors, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our misery, toil, and oppression. So the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with great terror and with signs and wonders. He brought us to the place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now I bring the first fruits of the soil that you, Lord, have given me. Place the basket before the Lord your God and bow down before him. Then you and the Levites and the foreigners residing among you shall rejoice in all the good things the Lord your God has given to you and your household. So basically, this is like a celebration of the blessing of the land that God had given them. And what better way to show or to celebrate the blessing by showing the blessings and to bring them to the altar as kind of like an offering. So the first fruits. So basically he proclaimed that the soil was going to be good. So the fruits are kind of like a result of that. They're the example that the land was good and it produces fruits such as these. So then the kind of, I think about it like, and mind you, I don't celebrate Christmas because I don't believe in the Christmas holiday. But it kind of reminds me of how people do celebrate Christmas, how every year in churches, they tell the story about Jesus's birth. Because the people that do believe that Christmas is representative of his birthday, which it's not, they retell the story. And every single year you attend Christmas Mass and they'll do like a play or whatever about telling the story about baby Jesus and how he grew up and everything. So this is kind of like that in the sense that every year it may be a repetitive... Sorry, guys. It may be a repetitive custom that every year you're going to bring the first fruits and then you're going to tell the story of the history of getting out of being led out of slavery, how God took you out of captivity from the Egyptians. So it's just basically a celebration. I believe that this was meant to keep them humble and to keep them grateful. Gratitude was very important back in these days because if you remember, their parents forgot how to be gracious. They forgot about their gratitude. They often forgot about how much God blessed them and all of the miracles that he performed to deliver them from captivity. And instead, they kept on turning away from God and doing their own thing. So then it says, verse 12, this is also important. When you have finished setting aside 1/10 of all your produce in the 3rd year, the year of the tithe, you shall give it to the Levite, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow, so that they may eat in your towns and be satisfied. So not only is it important to give back to God in the form of gratitude and thanking him for all the blessings, but it's also important to give back because remember, God declared from the beginning of Deuteronomy that you are always to remember the Levites, as the Levites are the people that did not have an assigned inheritance, but rather their inheritance was going to be a collective of all of the people that were living in the town of Israel. And they were to take care of the Levites. They are God's chosen people, that they were going to do certain tasks that God was going to deem for them to do. And then it's kind of like taxes. Like these are your government officials, basically, the Levites. but they also were the ones that ran the churches. So then, let's see. Okay, and then verse 14 was talking about basically saying that you didn't do anything mischievous, that you didn't eat any of the sacred offerings or whatnot. None of the first fruit, you didn't ingest it. Like, you divided it just as the Lord had commanded of you to put it aside. And then, so basically you did everything that you said that God wanted you to do. And now you're here, you obeyed the Lord, you obeyed all of his commandments. And now it says, verse 15, now they're asking of him, look down from heaven, your holy dwelling place, and bless your people, Israel, and the land you have given us, as you promised, an oath to our ancestors, a land flowing with milk and honey. So this is the exchange. And then verses 16 through 19 is very simple. It's just saying that you are to follow the Lord's commandments. It has reiterated that in previous chapters as well. It seems like every single time that we're given the customs and the commandments, it reminds you to follow them, to uphold them. And that is it for chapter 26. So now I'm going to open up the discussion to the comment section. If there is something that you feel I was missing, or something that you wanted to reiterate, or question, then now is the time. Says, it is important to share what God has done for you. Again, remind us that God is love and that there is good and bad times. Amen. I think it's very important to just kind of like take it all in, and to really, I think it was good that they had these kind of customs and stuff of remembrance, because being that we're humans, like, right? We know how short-term our memories can be when we're caught up in moments of stress and whatever. Sometimes we forget how much we're blessed with, and how much life is a gift. So we have to remain grounded, and things like this, being keeping up with God's customs, help to do so. But yeah, it's just, we can only, I feel like we don't do enough as far as practicing our gratitude, and maybe we should, and when I say we, I'm speaking me. I don't know about what you guys do in your life, but I think in general, you know, the people that I interact with, I feel like we could definitely do a better job in displaying our gratitude on a daily basis, rather than focusing on what we don't have. There's so much that God has blessed us with, and yeah, to lead in love would be a better approach than to just feel like you're slighted, or feel resentment that, you know, the next person next to you might have more than you or whatnot. None of that is productive. Do you think it's a story to show later generations how to tithe? No, I don't. I just think that this is more so like a history lesson as to what the Israelites, the customs that they were to do. I don't think necessarily that tithing applies to us anymore in the sense that it applied to them, because we don't have a Levites to tithe to. And if we did, because the Levites might still be here, but we don't know who they are. And that's the tricky part about the Bible, is the identities of the tribes are all mixed up now. So we don't know who belongs to who, and where and whatnot. I'm sure that was, well, we'll get to why soon in the book of Deuteronomy that's coming. But yeah, the identities of the tribes is unknown at this point. So since we do not know who the Levites are, we don't know who to tithe to. And they were, they had to tithe to them for the reasons that those were the people that were in charge of running the churches, of doing the court systems. They were the priests and all of that kind of thing. So the community did have to give back to them so that it could run efficiently. Now we have similar systems, like we have government officials, and technically our tax dollars pay that, but their purpose is not based on God, and that's where it's a little bit different. Now we have like laws that are just based on new ideals, and our law, I think that some of it comes from biblical times. And if you looked at previous chapters, we did discuss like what things are still in place, like as far as there needs to be witnesses to certain things. If there's no witnesses, then you can't prove somebody to be guilty, etc., etc. But yeah, it's just not rooted the exact same as far as like if you curse God's name in vain, that's a crime, and you're gonna go to jail for that or anything like that. That's not a crime anymore. Anything spiritual is not a crime anymore. Now it's more based off of our new law systems. What faith is this? This is the Bible. So it could be any faith that practices with the Bible. Okay. How do we go about doing that? Expressing gratitude. I think that this is an example. So chapter 26 talks about one aspect of it was to do the offerings, right? We don't have a temple that God has decided for us to do these kind of offerings anymore. But the second part of it was that you are to give back. And you're to give back to the fatherless, to the widow, to the homeless, and to the priests or whatnot, the Levitical priests. So people that are doing the Lord's work, people that are running churches, that are doing missions, people that are needy, I think that when you give back, that is a great way to express your gratitude. Personally, getting involved in a nice cause or whatnot, I think that God very often preached or recommended for us to be one with our community. God didn't want us to just be lonely creatures of habit and, to be selfish. We're to give back. We're to lead with love. And by doing so, what better example for other people to see the beauty of God by seeing what God's followers and God's people are doing in the community. That's like literally the best way to set in a good example of what we're supposed to look like, rather than Christians being known for other things like being judgmental, turning people away from the church, sticking to their own selves, and doing selfish things. It's a lot better for us to be known for being generous. J. Rose says, your pastor is your Levite and the ministry that serves you in spiritual matters, or so it should be. I can't speak for your place of worship. I believe ideally you're right. Ideally, like I said, it's not necessarily that they're a Levite, but they're doing the work that the Levites were doing. So whoever is responsible for doing the work of the Lord, support those people, because it takes money to do what they have to do in order to reach a broader group of people. So the church that I attend, or I used to physically attend, I don't attend anymore because I moved, VU Church, they, at the end of the year, would, with all of the funds that they earned from their different services throughout the year and whatnot, they would go around the community and write checks to different nonprofits and great causes in the community that they could help. So I was able to see where our offerings were going towards, and that made me feel really comfortable that I knew that the church was doing great things, rather than there are other churches out in the world that, the pastors are not living very modestly, and, they're indulging in their own riches and that kind of stuff. I don't really support that. So, whatever church you're attending, I would hope that you would feel good about feeling like your offering is going into a good place. So, do your research on that and whatnot. But yeah, that's one of those things that you're kind of on your own, and you gotta figure that out. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. And I will take one more. What I take from it is to help our homeless community and our youth. Absolutely. An attitude of gratitude. Love it. Never truly paid attention to this part before, but did it say after 3 years of prosperity, give back? It did say something about 3 years. Hold on, let me just double check. I remember reading something about 3 years. I don't remember if it was this chapter or if it was 14. Yeah, I believe it was in chapter 14, actually. Okay, I'm not seeing it right now. Oh, yeah, here. Deuteronomy 14:28. At the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of the year's produce and store it in your towns, so that the Levites who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be satisfied, so that the Lord your God may bless you and all the work of your hands. So that was one of the commandments, and that's where you got the 3-year thing. Okay, guys, I'm gonna stop there. I know that I wasn't able to read a lot of your comments because it was going kind of fast, and I spent a little bit of time on each of the comments because all comments are very important. So I would love to continue this discussion. I'm gonna post this video to YouTube as I usually do. It should probably be up in about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours or so. And if there's something that you wanted to add to that and weren't able to, let's continue the discussion in the YouTube comment section. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love this chapter, and we're getting very close to the end of Deuteronomy, so I hope that you guys stay tuned. And over and out.